Episode 1, The Hourglass Never Flows Backward. Back then, everything was changing fast. Store signs were being replaced, people's clothes were evolving, and the world was becoming increasingly unfamiliar. But amid that chaos, there was one thing that remained vividly clear: her smile. 1974 under the scorching sun where dock workers sweated through the day. I first saw her. She wore a white dress, holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums, waiting for her. Free on father's boat to return. I could never forget her. Her name was Yeon-hee. Her father was a ship captain who sailed the seas, and her mother had passed away early. She was often lonely, but even in that solitude, she had eyes that gleamed with strength. And I, Tae-soo, was the son of a laborer who happened to run an errand for a friend. That day when I saw her, it wasn't until months later that we spoke. We met again in a market alley. "Do you still like chrysanthemums?" I asked. She looked at me surprised, then smiled. That smile still lingers in my heart. In those days, we slowly approached each other. We shared tteokbokki at a small eatery near the docks, pretending to be grown-ups over a bowl of gukbap and a shot of soju. The world was getting rougher, but our hearts grew quietly within it. She loved books. I was the type to use my fists first. She always tried to stop me, and only in front of her did I become soft. Yeon-hee had a dream to become a teacher. She wanted to be someone warm to children, but everything changed that winter. My friend Jinwoo was taken away during a protest. From that day on, I could no longer just watch. She worried, but I walked into the streets without a word. The times did not let us be. Episode 2, that summer in Busan. Summer in Busan was always dazzling. The sands of Hyundai sparkled under the sun, and the waves whispered words of love as they rolled endlessly. That summer, we went to the sea together for the first time. Yeon-hee wore a white blouse and a denim skirt, and I wore a shirt cleaner than usual. Quietly, I took her hand. She paused for a moment, then smiled and held my hand tightly. In that moment, the noise of the world faded, and only the sound of waves remained. We picked seashells on the sand and walked barefoot over pebbles. She covered her mouth every time she laughed, and I wished every moment would last forever. Looking at the sea, Yeon-hee said, "Tae-soo, do you think we'll remember this summer?" Instead of replying, I gently embraced her shoulder. I believed that was enough of an answer, but summer was short. And during that brief time, the world shook again. Protests grew more intense, and the streets echoed with the sound of military boots. Since Jinwoo's disappearance, I was sinking deeper into the resistance. Yeon-hee was afraid and wanted to hold on to me, but I was drifting away. One day she cried and said, "I'm scared of you now. I'm afraid you'll disappear. You used to be warm, but lately you're growing colder." I said nothing. The world was tearing us apart, and not even I could stop it. That summer, we loved each other deeply, but the world wouldn't allow it. The waves still struck the shore, and our love was quietly sinking. Episode 3, the name washed away with tears. Autumn came. The cold wind of Hyundai swept away the traces of summer, gentle yet sharp. We no longer held hands. No, we couldn't. My hands could no longer warm hers, and her hands had already grown cold. Yeon-hee started working at a bookstore. Every day at 4 p.m. She would sit by a small window and read. I watched her from afar. My entire day moved around that clock, watching her, turning away, then returning to the shadows. There was still no word about Jinwoo. Rumors swirled he was being tortured, or worse, already dead. The uncertainty gnawed at me, and my resolve grew heavier. One day, Yeon-hee handed me a note. "I loved you, truly, but the man you are now isn't the one I loved. Please forget me. Please." The handwriting trembled. I stood there for a long time, holding the note. Something deep inside crumbled. Or perhaps I was only now accepting that it had already fallen. That night, I stood before the mirror and said my name. Kim Tae-soo. It felt foreign. Who was the man who bore that name? The smiling face, the warm hands, the eyes that once looked at Yeon-hee with love. All gone. I wrote that name on the wall. Slowly, quietly, I erased it with my tears. Episode 4, Jinwoo's disappearance, hope fading. Winter crept in. The cold wind brushed against our cheeks, and the city alleys darkened earlier with each passing day. People hunched their shoulders and the air grew heavier. Newspapers flapped with the headline, "Martial law intensifies." Jinwoo was still missing. On the 98th day since his disappearance, I went to deliver a letter to his mother. Her frail hand gripped mine, and with a trembling voice, she asked, "Do you think Jinwoo is still alive?" I couldn't answer. I only lowered my head and held her hand tightly. Her tears fell onto my skin, and I accepted the weight of her grief. Yeonhee had cut off all contact with me. Even when I passed by the bookstore, she no longer sat by the window. When I knocked, someone else would open the door, avoiding my gaze and quietly close it again. She was erasing messily, carefully. That night, I watched the last film Jinwoo had left behind. His face smiled within the crowd of protesters. His voice rang out, waving the flag, and in the final scene, he waved at me from the screen. "Hyung, we'll do it. This world, it can change." His words echoed in my chest. Yet hope inside me grew dimmer. Doubts festered. Was the world we were trying to change already too rotten, too far gone? Still, I couldn't stop. I couldn't betray what Jinwoo believed in, nor the part of myself that had once believed it too. Hope flickered like a dying flame, but it wasn't out. Not yet. Episode 5, Fragments of Memory. Snow had fallen through the night, blanketing the alleyways. At the break of dawn, I wandered the street where Yeonhee used to live, holding a letter. The snow crunched beneath my feet, and the silence mirrored the emptiness in my chest. The letter Jinwoo's last note read, "Hyung, if I disappear, please protect that child." For a long time, I had forgotten about it. No, I had chosen to ignore it. He never mentioned family. Not a friend, not a lover, just someone he wanted me to protect. And now my thoughts returned to Yeonhee. I found her later that day, sitting on an old park bench near the library. Her head bowed low, she was quietly crying. I sat beside her. She didn't look up, but she knew it was me. "It's over," she finally said. "Jinwoo, he's dead. Someone saw him outside the prison, beaten, lying on the ground. That was the last time." I couldn't speak. Her words pierced my heart like a blade. "But why?" she asked. "Did Jinwoo ask you to protect someone?" Silently, I handed her the letter. She unfolded it, read it slowly. Tears fell onto the paper. Then in a whisper, she said, "The one he wanted to protect, it's me. And the child." My gaze dropped to her stomach. I hadn't known. She was carrying Jinwoo's child, and suddenly everything made sense. His smile, the note, her silence, every piece of memory found its place. I gently took her hand. "I'll protect you." Not just because he asked, but because now it's my promise too. She nodded, her eyes closed. The snow kept falling. But in its stillness, we felt something warm for the first time in a long while. Jinwoo's love lived on in us, and in the hope we'd carry forward. Episode 6, The Road of No Return. Time passed. The snow had melted, and spring sunlight now bathed the streets. But within me, winter lingered. Yeonhee had begun a quiet life, modest, fragile, yet determined. Every day, she whispered to the child in her arms, "Your father loved you more than anything. He faced everything just to protect you." I stood outside, hearing those words, a weight pressing down on my chest. Jinwoo was still missing. No grave, no official record, just the word disappearance to explain it all. Then one day, a strange letter arrived. "He's alive, but I can't say more now. I'll contact you again when the time is right." No sender, no seal. But the handwriting, it looked like Jinwoo's. I didn't know what to believe. Alive? Where? Why? That night, I dreamt of him. He was bruised and bloodied, looking right at me. "Hyung, protect them." "Yeonhee." The child promised me. I woke up drenched in sweat. A few days later, as Yeonhee and I returned from the market, a man followed us. I confronted him. "Who are you?" He lowered his head and handed me a paper. "I was told to deliver this." That's all. It was a fragment of a map and a single line. "Find the place where the hourglass stopped." Jinwoo used to talk about hourglasses. "Time doesn't stop, Hyung, but sometimes I wish it would. If that ever happens, it'll be for someone I love." Yeonhee and I began preparing for a journey to the place marked on that map, where Jinwoo's trace might remain. But we didn't know then that this would be the road of no return, that Yeonhee's gaze would grow distant, that fear would begin to creep into my bones. We didn't know what awaited us at the end. Episode 7, Where the Hourglass Stopped. We arrived at the remote mountain village marked on the map, a place where time seemed to freeze. The air was colder than expected. The trees clawed at the sky with their bare branches. Yeonhee remained silent. She held the child closely, her eyes scanning the quiet landscape, as if expecting someone, as if hoping for a miracle. We checked into a small inn. The owner looked surprised, almost uneasy. "People from Seoul rarely visit here," he said, his voice careful. I asked, "Is there anything related to an hourglass here?" Instead of replying, he handed me an old photograph. Black and white, worn edges. Jinwoo, smiling, wearing a military uniform. Not just any uniform, but one belonging to a special operations unit. My hands trembled. "He stayed in this village a few years ago," the innkeeper whispered. "Left suddenly. He said, "Whammo, time's up." At night, the village drowned in silence. No streetlights, just wind. I found the abandoned cabin Jinwoo had stayed in. Inside, I found an old tape recorder. I pressed play. "Hyung, if you're hearing this, I'm probably already gone. Remember why I disappeared? It wasn't just about the country. It was Yeonhee, our child. Protect them, please. And be careful, someone will come for you. They don't want the truth exposed." A sound behind me. "You came faster than expected," a cold voice said. A man stood at the doorway. Dark coat, blank eyes, a radio device in his hand. "You must be Jinwoo's brother," he said. "This ends here." I saw Jinwoo's old pistol on the wall. I grabbed it and made a vow. I will finish what Jinwoo started. Please subscribe and like notification. See you in the next episode.